Hey everyone, it's Andrea Ramos. If you guys are new around here, I hope you stick around, and if you're not new around here, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so going right into the content for today's video, we are going to be covering two more Korean urban legend stories, and the first one is called the Red Surgical Mask. Plastic surgery is a relatively big thing in Korean culture. The pursuit of beauty and perfection is something that almost everyone in society aims for. And I think this actually applies to every country, if we're being honest. I mean, I'm sure that each country has a significant population of people who just want to look their best, which isn't a bad thing. Maybe not plastic surgery wise, but there's definitely a huge percentage of people from each country that want to look their best and look as perfect as they possibly can, which perfection is such a high thing to reach for, but I definitely don't think it's a bad thing if you want to look your best. One day, a man is sitting in an empty subway car when a tall, thin woman walks in and sits in front of him. Her hair is dark and long, and it covers most of her face, but he can see that she has a red surgical mask on. Okay, so far in the story, nothing too sketchy is happening, right? A guy is just sitting in a subway car that happens to be empty, and he notices a beautiful woman walk in, which is completely normal. Most people would notice something like that, right? So the woman walks in and she sits down. The guy takes notice of her and he just casually leans back, watches the door close, and then they make eye contact. The man notices her eyes as she keeps staring. He smiles at her. She asks the man, "Am I pretty?" Taken aback, the man stammers, "Yes." And it is at that moment that the guy knew he messed up. After the man answered yes, the woman took off her surgical mask, and what was presented to him was a grotesque slash from the corners of her mouth all the way to her ears, or at least close to the ears. It was like just big gashes adorning her face. You could see her teeth and gums and just ligaments just flailing out there. She then asked the man, "Am I pretty now?" In terror, the man tries to get as far away from the woman as possible. She takes out a scalpel and makes her way towards him. That is, until the door opened and the man ran out. So after showing her grotesque face, the woman busted out with a scalpel that she just so happened to have and was making her way towards him. Now, can you imagine what she was probably trying to do? It's okay if you don't, because I'm about to tell you. Like many urban legends, there are different variations of the same story. In this story, the man gets away, but in more popular versions of this story, no one ever makes it out alive. So the other variations go like this. If you answer yes, like the man did in this version, she will pretty much do the same thing. She will show her gashed face and then approach the person with the scalpel, but instead of getting away, she actually ends up cutting their face and giving them the same gash that she does. Not an ideal situation. On the flip side, if the person answers no, then she just kills you on the spot. So, there's that. And also one more thing that I want to point out about this urban legend is that from the source that I got this from, it also mentions that it's very similar to a Japanese urban legend called Kuchisake Onna. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. And it also says that the actual origin of this urban legend is unknown, if it originated in Korea and went over to Japan, or if it originated in Japan and then made its way to Korea. Either way, the legends are pretty much the same, and there might just be little details that are different, but in the end, the same story. Okay, so moving on to our next story. This one is called The Man in the Elevator. There was once a 19-year-old Korean girl named Haruko who was attending university in a large city. One night, she had to stay late in the library to finish a project, and it was almost dark by the time she returned home. Haruko lived on the 14th floor of an old apartment building. She stood in the entrance and pressed the button to call the elevator. She always hated coming home alone so late in the evening. It just didn't feel safe. So right away, we're kind of given some red flags on the fact that this is going to be a dark story. The girl is studying late, she gets home late, and she doesn't feel safe. When the elevator came, she stepped inside and pushed the button for her floor. Just as the doors were about to close, a handsome man came running up. The man was out of breath and put out his hand to stop the doors from closing. Then he stepped into the elevator and stood beside her. "You live on the 14th floor?" he asked, seeing the button lit up. "Yes," replied Haruko. "Oh," said the man, smiling. "I live on the 13th. As the elevator ascended, he pressed the button for 13. Okay, so again, we are presented with another attractive person. You guys see a You guys see a pattern here? Clearly there's gonna be something wrong with this guy, and if you thought that, then you are correct. Through the window in the elevator, Haruko watched the floors go by as they both stood in silence. She stole a few glances at the man. He certainly was handsome. She wondered if he would ever be interested in dating her. When he happened to look at her, she batted her eyelids and smiled sweetly at him. Just then, the elevator stopped at the 13th floor. The doors opened and the man stepped out. "See you later," he said. "Yes, see you," replied Haruko. And then, as the doors were closing, the man turned around and showed her a knife from her pocket, making sure that she saw, and said, "Upstairs." And then turned around and ran towards the stairs. So as you can imagine, Haruko was absolutely terrified and she went into a panic, because who wouldn't in that situation, right? Desperately, she hammered the buttons with her fists, trying to get the elevator to stop, but it was no use. When it reached the 14th floor and the doors opened, the man with the knife was already standing there, waiting for her. So this story definitely did not have a happy ending. The man was waiting for her outside of the elevator once she got there and stabbed her to death in the elevator. It is said that many Koreans actually believe this story to be true. So true to the point where people are saying that this story is the reason for why all elevators in Korea have a stop button now. And people are also saying that the worst part isn't even her death. The worst part was during that short period of time between levels, between floors, where she was just in sheer panic for her life, terrified of what was waiting for her once she got to that stopping point. And I completely agree with that theory, because my previous question when I first read this story, I thought to myself, well, if he was planning on killing her in the elevator and they were already alone in the elevator that first time when he got in and he had the knife on him, why didn't he just do it there? Well, clearly the answer was because he was psychotic. Only someone who has a mental illness and is just psychotically out of his mind would want to torture another human being like that before actually killing them. Once again, I want to point out that I have no idea if this urban legend is actually true. A lot of people believe that it is. It does sound believable, honestly, like it's nothing supernatural. It's something that could totally happen with a completely evil person. By the way, if any of you have actually like grown up with any of these legends and know more details or like the origins of any of these, please feel free to comment them down below. I would love to learn more about them. Okay, so that is it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys were entertained. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!